The gods of Asgard knew how the world would end. Not vaguely, not as a distant possibility. They knew. They had heard the prophecy of Ragnarök, the final catastrophe that would consume gods, giants, and men. They knew that Odin would fall, that Thor would die, that the great wolf Fenrir would break free, that the Midgard serpent would rise from the depths. And yet they continued. They feasted, they fought, they ruled, they loved, they built. Perhaps this is what makes Ragnarök so disturbing. It is not simply a story about the end of the world. It is a story about knowing that the end is coming and living anyway. The Norse imagined existence not as an endless climb toward perfection, but as a cycle of creation, destruction, and rebirth. Even the gods were not immortal in the way we imagine gods to be. They could die, and they knew it. The most powerful beings in the cosmos were not spared from fate. They were trapped inside it. And the first sign that fate was beginning to close its hand was winter. The Fimbulwinter. Before the great battle, there would come a winter unlike any winter before it. The Fimbulwinter. 3 terrible winters would pass without a summer between them. Snow would cover the earth. Winds would howl. Humanity would turn against itself. Brothers would fight brothers. Families would collapse. The bonds holding civilization together would disappear. And eventually the world would become something almost unrecognizable. This is important. Ragnarök does not begin with the gods. It begins with society collapsing. Because perhaps the Norse understood something uncomfortable. A civilization does not need to be destroyed from outside. It can destroy itself. When trust disappears, when loyalty becomes weakness, when survival becomes the only law, the structures people spent generations building can disappear remarkably quickly. The Fimbulwinter is therefore more than supernatural weather. It is the freezing of civilization itself. And while humanity descends into chaos, something else is waiting. The chains break. For centuries, the gods had tried to control the forces they feared. Among the most dangerous was Fenrir. The monstrous wolf had grown so powerful that the gods feared what would happen if he were allowed to roam freely. So they tried to bind him. First with ordinary chains. Fenrir broke them. Then with stronger chains. He broke those too. Finally, the gods commissioned a magical binding called Gleipnir. It looked delicate, almost harmless, but it was made from impossible things. The sound of a cat's footsteps, the beard of a woman, the roots of mountains, the breath of fish, the sinews of bears, and the spittle of birds. Fenrir was suspicious. He agreed to be bound only if one of the gods placed a hand inside his mouth as a guarantee. Tyr volunteered, and when Fenrir discovered that the gods had deceived him, he bit down. Tyr lost his hand. Fenrir remained imprisoned for a while, but Ragnarök was never canceled, only delayed, and eventually the chain would break. The sky splits open. Then the signs would come. The sun and moon would be swallowed. The stars would disappear. The earth would tremble. Mountains would collapse. The boundaries between worlds would begin to break. The great wolf Fenrir would escape. The Midgard serpent, Jormungandr, would rise from the ocean. The seas would flood the land, and from the realm of the dead would come another army. The dead would march toward the battlefield. Even the ship Naglfar would be released. A ship said to be made from the fingernails and toenails of the dead. And now there would be no hiding. The gods would know. This was it. The prophecy had become reality. There would be no final escape, no clever trick, no intervention from another god, no miracle that could reverse what had already begun. Fate had arrived. The final battle. The gods would gather for the final battle at Vigridr. Odin would ride into combat. Thor would raise Mjolnir. Freyr would face the fire giant Surtur. Tyr would confront the monstrous hound Garm. And Heimdall, guardian of the Bifrost, would blow the Gjallarhorn. Its sound would announce the beginning of the end. Odin would face Fenrir, the father of the gods, against the creature he had once feared. But Odin would lose. Fenrir would swallow him. Then Odin's son, Vidar, would avenge him. Thor would battle Jormungandr. The thunder god would finally defeat the serpent. but the serpent's poison would already be inside him. Thor would walk 9 steps and fall dead. Freyr would fight Surtur without his legendary sword, and he would fall. Then Heimdall and Loki would meet, enemies to the very end. They would kill one another, and across the battlefield the old order would collapse. Gods would die, monsters would die, heroes would die, the world they knew would die. And then Surtur would raise his flaming sword. Fire would consume everything. When the world dies, the earth would sink beneath the waves. Fire would sweep across the heavens. The old cosmos would disappear. Asgard would fall. Midgard would be destroyed. The gods would be gone. And for a moment, there would be nothing. This is where Ragnarök becomes strangely beautiful. Because the Norse story does not end with destruction, it begins again. After the catastrophe, the earth rises from the sea, green, renewed. A new world appears. Some gods survive. Balder returns from the dead, and 2 humans, Leif and Lifthrasir, emerge from their hiding place. They have survived the destruction. They will repopulate the world. The sun itself has a daughter, and she will follow the path of her mother across the renewed sky. The old world is gone, but existence continues. The meaning of Ragnarök. Perhaps this is why Ragnarök has survived for so many centuries. Because beneath the monsters and gods is a profoundly human idea. You cannot defeat everything. You cannot escape every consequence. You cannot build something powerful enough to make yourself invulnerable. Even Odin cannot escape fate. Even Thor cannot escape death. Even Asgard can fall. And yet, the Norse did not conclude that life was therefore meaningless. Quite the opposite. The fact that everything ends makes what happens before the end matter. The gods know they will lose, and they fight anyway. That may be the deepest lesson hidden inside Ragnarök. Courage is not the belief that you will win. Courage is knowing that you may lose and choosing to stand anyway. Perhaps the Norse understood something we often forget. We spend much of our lives trying to defeat time. We accumulate wealth, build reputations, create monuments, protect ourselves, search for permanence. But nothing remains untouched forever. Every empire eventually becomes a ruin. Every generation disappears. Every body returns to the earth. Every story eventually reaches its final page. The question is not whether Ragnarök will come. For each of us, in one form or another, it will. The question is what we do before it arrives. Because the gods of Asgard were not heroic because they were immortal. They were heroic because they weren't. They knew the end. They saw it coming, and still, they walked toward it. Maybe that is what Ragnarök was really trying to tell us. The end of the world is terrifying, but the knowledge that everything ends may also be the reason anything matters at all. If this video changed the way you think, consider subscribing to The Strange Republic for more philosophical journeys into the strangest ideas ever imagined.